Today we're looking at the Gilded Age. Hello and welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. Also, don't forget to check out dailybellringer.com for resources that go with many of the Bellringer videos. The Gilded Age was a period of enormous economic growth in America that basically began in the wake of the Civil War in the late 1860s and lasted for the next 30 years until the late 1890s. The title Gilded Age was taken from the Mark Twain novel The Gilded Age, A Tale of Today, and during this time period the economy of the United States doubled in size. Although the Industrial Revolution might have had a brief pause with the Civil War breaking out in 1861, the growth of factories and the use of new manufacturing technology continued after the war. The Gilded Age saw a major shift in the workforce of America, as before the Civil War, most Americans worked for themselves, whereas by 1900, most Americans worked for an employer. The massive growth in the U.S. economy drew millions of immigrants to move to America during the Gilded Age. It's estimated that over 11.5 million immigrants came to America, with most moving to America from European countries. The completion of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869 connected the East and West, and now products and resources could be more easily shipped across the nation. It also led to a rapid settlement of the western part of the United States. Cities continued to grow as people flocked to urban centers to work in these growing factories. By the turn of the century, nearly 40% of Americans lived in cities. But American cities were not ready for this rapid growth. Tenement housing began popping up in larger cities. Tenements were poorly constructed apartment buildings with several stories. They were built virtually on top of each other, and people lived in incredibly cramped conditions. These close quarters were unsanitary and led to disease spreading quickly throughout these tenements. As wealth grew, so too did the concentration of wealth in America. The elite accumulated enormous amounts of wealth. Many of these elite were termed robber barons. Robber barons were the heads of companies who were ruthless in their pursuit of more wealth. They used political tactics, corruption, and even violence to make sure they beat the competition. They attempted to create monopolies of different industries, which a monopoly is when one company controls all of the supply and trade within a certain industry. Corruption in government was rampant or widespread as wealthy industrialists worked diligently to make sure the government did not interfere with their business or attempt to put any regulations on them. Again, these industrialists amassed amazing fortunes, which was evident by the homes they built. George Vanderbilt, who made his fortune with railroads, built the Biltmore Mansion in Asheville, North Carolina. The Biltmore has more than 170,000 square feet, 35 bedrooms, 43 bathrooms, an indoor pool, and even a bowling alley. Some of the more well-known industrialists were Andrew Carnegie, who made millions in the steel industry, and John D. Rockefeller, who controlled the oil industry. Although both Carnegie and Rockefeller were ruthless businessmen, they also were known for being philanthropists, or their philanthropy, as Carnegie established libraries across the United States, and Rockefeller gave away nearly half of his wealth to churches and hospitals. As wealthy industrialists built their fortunes, they did so based on the labor of the working class. Workers were required to work 12-hour days and many times work 6 days a week, working in unsafe conditions. Eventually, the working class began to recognize how they were being taken advantage of and the huge gap between their wages and the ridiculous income being collected by the company owners. Workers began to organize and form unions to argue for their rights. Many workers went on strike or refused to work until their demands were met. Many times employers would bring in replacement workers or use violence to attempt to break up strikes. One of the largest strikes was the Pullman strike in 1894 that brought railroads in America to a halt and required the intervention of President Grover Cleveland to end the strike, and interestingly would lead to the holiday of Labor Day being established. The Gilded Age basically came to an end with the Panic of 1893 that led to a 4-year economic depression until 1897. This would then usher in what was known as the Progressive Era in America, in which people attempted to correct some of the social and political errors which had occurred during the Gilded Age. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.